Well, today we are going to be discussing building a community of faithful, supportive women. We are in episode 5, topic 5 of our Navigating Life in the Middle series that we are currently in. If you haven't listened to any of our other episodes or last week's episodes, definitely go and check those out as well. They're really good topics to just kind of hang out with us and kind of talk about how we're navigating life in the middle. Just go take a listen to those episodes. They're really good. But yeah, today we're going to be talking about building a community of faithful, supportive women. Fostering genuine friendships in our 20s and 30s can be challenging, especially with changes. Be offering tips and finding and nurturing a faith-based support system.
Welcome to No More Sunday Scaries, a podcast for women navigating the chaos of life, love, and work, all while keeping Jesus at the center.
If you're in the middle and figuring out what's next, this is your safe space to laugh, learn, and lean into God's plan for your life.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Sydney. Together, we're here to unpack those difficult questions, tackle the what am I doing with my life moments, and remind you that you're never alone in this journey.
So grab your coffee and let's kick those Sunday scaries to the curb.
Because with faith, community, and a little bit of fun, the work week doesn't have to be so scary. Let's dive in. Emily, I'm going to pass it off to you. Can you explain to us maybe how you have been able to support and find community with the spaces that you're in, just in your journey? Because I know you talked about your journey in a few episodes. We both talked about our journeys a few episodes ago. But can you talk about, like, while you're going on your journey, how are you supporting and nurturing maybe those hometown friendships and the friendships of the current spaces you're in?
Yeah. So I know we talked about community before, and one of the things I think about is community. If you are someone who is lucked up on a community, awesome. I'm happy for you. But sometimes building a community is something you have got to seek out and can sometimes be intimidating or scary. And so if you are someone who has like grown up in the hometown that you're currently, like where you currently live, that's your hometown, and you know people, I'm sure it's a little bit easier. But if you're like new to town or newer, then you're going to have to get comfortable with being in spaces where you don't know people, because I am a big fan of having pockets of communities.
Yeah.
Meaning I've got my work friends or coworkers, and then maybe I've got my Bible study group, and then I've maybe got a book club of just social people that I've randomly met. And then if you're someone who like goes to the gym or a bar class or something, because when I say a bar class, I used to do like ballet bar, not like drinking bar. Because I mentioned one day I gotta go to bar class, and my coworker was like, "Okay," and I'm like ballet bar anyway. And she's like, "Oh, I thought you were out there mixing drinks." I'm like, "Girl, no." But yeah, so I've always had like pockets of friends, and it's because it's just like, I don't know, it's fun for me. I'm a big compartmentalizer. So like with my small group, we talk about life, but we're focused on like biblical things. Where my book club, like, yes, we may talk about God, yes, we may talk about work, but like we're focused on the book club. And so I have found that, and then obviously with coworkers, I'm a big fan of not always being around my groups of friends that I work with, only because you always end up talking about work. Like there's definitely times where like I couldn't always hang out with my friends that I work with. Even you and I, like we still work in different departments, but we work in the university. I'll catch myself like bringing work up and talking about it because you can just relate to it. Where with my Bible study friends, we're in totally different areas, so we don't hardly ever talk about it. And so it's nice to just have those different pockets. And so you've got to like search that out depending on your comfortability. And so that's something that as I have moved into different cities, I know I shared my journey. So I've lived in maybe like 3 or 4 cities that I'm not originally from.
Yeah.
And I've had to slowly get comfortable with building that. And it takes time. And while I'm not the best at this, is like you can't always wait for people to reach out to you. Like you've also got to say like, hey, let's hang out, or hey, let's get together, or I want to have something at my house, like come over and do that. It can't always be a, well, they're not inviting me, or like nobody knows me.
Right.
Like that may not be intentional. It's just we're so focused on our own schedule sometimes. No one's trying to exclude you unless they are. And if they are, that is not the supportive community that we're trying to talk about here.
Right.
And so that is something that most recently in the city that I currently live, I was new a couple years ago, and I found my different pockets, and it was fun to go to book club, go to Bible study. But that Bible study has been something that I've been able to stick with for a long time. And that's where I have found the most support because our values are rooted in the same thing. And we're able to kind of be vulnerable with each other in our relationship. And I think it's important to have that supportive Christian group of women because accountability, like I know for me, when we are doing our Bible study for the week, I'm going to read that chapter. So I've got something to talk about and I'm just not always missing the mark. Where if I don't have anybody to talk to about it, I'm going to easily forget to like get out my Bible.
Yeah.
And so I think you need that accountability. And then two, I'm a big fan of hearing other people's perspectives. I think we naturally get close to people who are kind of like us, whether that's like looking like us or like similar, like commonalities.
Yeah.
That's just going to happen. But even if you're similar, you're going to see things in a different way, a different perspective. And you and I have talked about this of like most of the things that we do are pretty similar. Sometimes the way that we think about things are similar, but two, we bring different perspectives. And there's been times when we've come at a problem or come at something in two different perspectives.
Yeah.
And so talking it out with you, if I read a scripture, you read a scripture, and I'm like, oh, I never thought about it like that. Like you need that challenging, hey, it may also have been this, and then just that group to go to. So that's kind of been my experience, and something that has helped me is community is great for support, but it's also great for accountability. But it takes time to build that rapport.
Yeah.
Depending on who you are, that is going to look like you can have honest conversations with certain groups that you can't have with others. But I think you need to find the small group of people who can be real with you.
Yeah.
And like you can go to when you're like crying, or
For
you
sure.
can go to when you're like, hey, does this sound right? And not just people who will be yes people around you. I think that is important, like supportive, but realistic. And so that's kind of been my experience. And I think that's as well while how we've connected. Again, we talked about how we became friends, but I could tell like, okay, Sydney's one of my people. Like she's someone who, yes, we think similar and like have that discernment, but like she's going to challenge me in a different way. And I've been grateful for you also not to be a yes person in my life. Like you'll also share things that are like, I'm not sure about this. Like, have you thought about this? And I hope I'm that to you and to other people.
Yeah.
So that's been my experience. So I'd love to hear kind of what your experience or, what your communities currently look like.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I like the groups are kind of almost compartmentalized. Just because I feel like I'm pretty similar in that sense, just because I have, my hometown friends, and then I have friends from college, and then I have, just people that I've met here and like you and things like that. And so it's like I have different groups as well, just from different regions I've been in. And so I think that that's like a really great concept to have. But I feel like for me, it's been almost a little challenging for me to manage all of those groups in a way. Plus also try to like manage just my other personal life as well. Like just with me and my family. And so sometimes I feel like it can kind of be a little daunting, trying to keep up with all of those different groups and then different regions, because maybe it's not a quick like, hey, let's go hang out at a coffee shop. It's more a text or a phone call or anything like that. So usually it's I feel like sometimes that's harder just for me, because I like that face-to-face interaction and I like that connection with people rather than just sending a text or a phone call or FaceTime. That's why like COVID was pretty hard for me, which is kind of weird to say because like I'm introverted, so I'm fine with staying home, but it's also like I feel like I like having that human interaction just because it does kind of bring the wholesome, it almost like rounds out the friendship. So it's a little bit challenging for me in that sense. But I do think I I liked your comment when you were talking about, like it takes time to build your community and things like that. And I think I totally agree with that, because it really does take time in a sense of like, when you're growing up through your age in grade school and things like that, and you have your group, y'all are all at the same level. Like you're all at the same, around the same age. You're all going through the same stuff. You're all taking the same classes, things like that. Then you get to college and, you're friends with different people of different age groups and then different majors. Maybe you're in a sorority, which you can find some common ground there. But then it's like it starts kind of like varying. So, like going from grade school to building a community in college, like that's hard. And so I think it's kind of like you have to, but when you're trying to build your community in college, you're having to rely on your community that you built in high school. When you're trying to build those communities, you can rely on your other communities that you have solidified and built to almost like help you maintain those values, those beliefs, characteristics about yourself for the new community that you're trying to build. It's just really important when you're building those communities to find, like you were saying, those real your people, because those people are going to help you build those newer communities, even if they don't live in the same city or anything like that, because those are going to be the people that are pouring into you like, hey, maybe you should go look here. Hey, like when you're feeling low because you are feeling lonely or anything like that, they're pouring into you saying like, it's okay. Like nothing's wrong with you. You're totally fine. You just haven't found your people. Your people haven't been presented to you yet. And so I think just being able to find those people, it's challenging just within this in this day and age with just social media and things like that. It's hard. But I think if you built that foundation, that good foundation in high school when everyone was at the same level and things like that, I think that's where it really starts. Now, if you're, maybe you didn't build the best community in high school and you're trying to like start over from ground zero, it's not a lost hope. Like there's still people out there that can help lead you to the right direction. It's just maybe you're having to look at maybe just a larger circle of people to actually build that community. But I would say it's just, for me, it's just kind of like I feel like I've relied on so many of my communities to help, you know, find those new communities. And it's kind of like a stepping stone for me. And so that's why I feel like I've been able to nurture the communities that I'm in now, is because I rely so heavily on the communities that I've built, straight out the gate kind of thing. So I feel like it's something that you just have to really, like you said, you just have to really know yourself. And we talked about that. was it like our first episode or something like that?
I
Can't
think
remember.
that and every episode after.
Yeah, literally, because you really do like it plays all together, and you really have to know yourself and what you want out of a community, and what you've prayed for and things like that to really build that foundation of people to surround yourself with.
I was thinking of like when we were talking of like, okay, what if I'm someone who it's like, okay, where do I start? If
Mm-hmm.
it's either you're new to a city or your friends have moved or you're out of high school, college, or whatever, and it's
Yeah.
like you had friends automatically because they were at the same level as you. We've talked about values, we've talked about knowing yourself for sure, because if you are getting into a community, you got to know who you are. But
Mm-hmm.
maybe, yes, your values, but think about your identities that you hold. And
Yeah.
so, like, if you're a mom, like, you probably need a group of moms
Yeah.
that, and if you're like a Christian woman, maybe you want to find a group of Christian moms, you know? Or if you have struggled with infertility, I don't know why I keep talking about mom, but like,
Yeah.
you need to find a group for that.
Yeah.
And like, or if you are, you know, a single gal, you need a single group to talk, because if you're single and you've been single for a while and you go with your married friends, it's
Yeah.
different. Like, you can enjoy them, but like, you can't be like, oh, I hate being single, because then they're gonna could be, well, you're gonna have to worry about someone else, and it's really nice to do whatever you want, you know. And you're like,
Yeah.
well, that's not really what I was trying to vent about. And then
Yeah.
too, vice versa. Like, if you're single, you're like, oh, it's the if you have a single friend and you're married and they're complaining, you're like, well, at least you get to do things on your own. Anyway, kind of going on a tangent.
Yeah.
But just like, and that's not to say if you're single, you can't hang out with married people, vice versa. But like,
Right.
you need married friends if you're married.
Yes.
You need potentially single friends if you're married within reason.
Yes.
But, and then like, if you are, you know, a woman who's confident in your faith and you're maybe older, maybe you need a group to disciple to. So
Yeah.
it's not always a community that is like equal to you. Maybe you need to be discipling people, and then maybe you need to be in a group where people are discipling to you. So it's like thinking about the identities that you hold. What's your relationship status? You know, what about your work? Just different things of like, that's a good place to start. And so that's why I mentioned like my biggest identity is a Christian.
Yeah.
And so, and when I do Bible studies, I do it with just ladies, because that's how I've always grown up in the like girls ministry and all that, of like, okay, so my group is always going to be like a small group of women
Yeah.
who are Christians. And then like I had my book club because I love to read.
Yeah.
And so like we focus on that. And then just different pockets. And so that's kind of like, okay, where do I start? But then I think about this. The community is kind of ever changing, meaning, and we've talked about seasons of life, but there could be a community that you have that is no longer serving you, or you're no longer serving it. And what I mean by that is, I have a friend who, and I've kind of grown out of groups because I've literally moved. And so I haven't had a moment where I'm like, I don't know if I need to be a part of this group before. But I have a friend who has kind of been in the same area for years. And so she had a friend group when she was like younger. And as she's gotten older, she's like, I don't know if I need to be in this group right now, because we're in different stages of life. I'm also trying to focus on different things. But then she mentions this like guilt that she has, because it's like, she's like, it's not that I don't like these people, or like, I love these people and I don't want them to be mad at me, and I want to hang out with them every now and then, but I can't continue to hang out because they're pulling me away from my goal. I want to focus more on the Lord, and maybe they aren't focusing as much. I want to be around people who are having a stronger relationship. And so hearing her talk through that, you know, I'm thinking, yeah, that's tough, because you want to be with those people because you want to be that light. Like, you want to like witness to them, or just kind of encourage them of like, hey, you know, let's get in the word together. But if they're not doing that, then it may be a, hey, right now I've got to focus on other things, but that doesn't mean we're not friends anymore. So that can be tough, especially if you are a people pleaser. I think we've talked about people pleasing before of, I don't want them to think I'm high and mighty of like, well, I've got to go hang out with my Christian friends. It's like, you become the company you keep. And if you're always around people who are like draining you or like not focusing on the Lord, like you are going to inevitably, that's going to rub off on you. And so, like, you've got to figure out what's serving you. And then, two, you've got to figure out, are you the thing that's sucking the energy out of your community? Like, are you the one who comes and just like trauma dumps and doesn't listen to everyone else? When you have those groups, I think about in Sunday school when you go around for prayer requests, and you're always like, okay, Susie, every week you've got unspoken. Just tell us what it is. No. Or like, my son, whatever, to each his own. But it's like, but Susie, are you like listening? Or like Emily, you're always sharing that you're going through this and you're going through that. That's great. But like, let's maybe let Sydney chat for a little bit. Like, let's let her share. Or like, just thinking about that, like thinking about the space that you're holding up. And then thinking about the space that you're occupying in other communities. I think that is important. And knowing that it's not always going to be rainbows and hearts all the time, because I've got a book club and we always meet on like a Wednesday. We meet once a month and we'll meet on Wednesdays after work. Every single time that comes around, I'm like, I don't want to go. Not because I don't want to hang out with them, but because it's a Wednesday at 5:30 after work. But that's the time that works best for our schedule. So I'm like, I don't want to go. And then I go, and every single time after, I'm like, I'm so glad that I went. That was such a good conversation. This is exactly why I keep doing this. And so there are going to be times. Now, if when the thing is I only dread it because I want to go home in my pajamas and just doom scroll on TikTok, which is not serving me. This community of women are serving me in the book club. And so, but if you're dreading it of like, gosh, I don't like anybody there and they're just like always into themselves and like, it's not really serving me, then maybe you need to cut that out. But then there are going to be times when it's like, it's not convenient. But then when you go, you're like, gosh, I'm so glad that I went. And so, because even if it was like on a Saturday, I'd be like, gosh, I don't want to go. I don't want to get ready. And then I'd be happy. So just thinking about that of, if you're part of communities that were great, like if you're in college and you have like this great group of friends and then you kind of are post grad and they're kind of drifting and doing their own thing, doesn't mean you're not great college friends if you cut them out of your life or just create that distance. And so that is one thing I know with a lot of people that are listening in that middle, you're going to have some residual communities and friends, whether you're physically there or even when you move of like, okay, what does that look like and who's kind of worth keeping close to and all of that. And just not trying to people please so much to the detriment of yourself can be tough.
Yeah, and you definitely don't want to people please so much that you're attracting the wrong crowd for sure. So yeah, I agree. I think that was really, really good of like, especially for when you were talking about, for my instance, like my husband's in medical school. I'm not from this state. I'm from back in Texas and things like that. So it's been kind of hard for me to like find community because it's kind of scarce out here in these small towns that we're in, especially in our age group. So I would say like, yeah, I think it's definitely, that's a really good point. Like when you're trying to find those communities, say, like I said, you didn't have a good community in high school or anything like that, going back to like what you're interested in and have that being your foundation to find that community. And also make sure that it's like, if you're looking for, because obviously we're two Christian gals, so like we want to promote good things. So like if you're into sports or anything, pickleball. I haven't played pickleball, but I've seen the fad for it. But for me, it's golf. So like finding girls or a scramble or anything like that to go play golf, or like Emily, if you like to read or you're creative or crafty, definitely having that as like a foundation. Anything else we don't recommend for like recreational, whatever you want to use, anything like that. Like, nope, we're not promoting that. But definitely like fill your cup with good things, things that are going to refresh you, kind of like how Emily was saying about her small group. Like, get involved in things that are going to really refresh you and recharge you and help kind of like motivate you to maybe start eating healthier, maybe even read more books, or run a 5K or a half marathon or a marathon. I personally would not choose that, but I mean, that doesn't mean no one else would not want to do that. So, but yeah, so I definitely think finding those things that you're interested in and using that as a foundation. But remember, what you are finding, whatever you're interested in will produce the community. So, like I said, if you're, maybe going out or anything like that and laying that as the foundation, you can expect majority of the time the crowds are not going to produce the right people that you might need to be around. And so, but, finding the saying, church is a big part of my life, Jesus is a big part of my life, I'm going to use that as my foundation, and then small group, and then things like that. Those are the people that are going to pour into you and refill your cup. And like Emily said, keep you accountable, and keep you on the right path that you need to go down. So, yeah, hopefully we shared some insight on nurturing those friendships in our 20s and 30s and things along those lines. In the meantime, Miss Amelia, how are you protecting yourself from those Sunday scaries?
So I think last episode I talked about like meal prepping and all that. So still doing that, loving it.
Yeah.
But this last week or recently, last week, I got a Ninja Creamy.
Yes. Aren't they amazing?
Amazing.
Yes.
Watched one too long of a Ninja Creamy TikTok, and I was on it for weeks.
Yes.
And I noticed it at the beginning of the year, and I said, you know what? If I stick to my meal prepping and planning in January, at the end of January, I'll get a creamy. Yeah. So I got it and have started to perfect the consistency, the recipes. And I just love being able to determine what goes in it, because I love alternative. Like, I don't do lactose. I'm dairy free and all that. Yeah. And so for the majority of the time. And so it's nice to like have ice cream, but like it's in modification, or like if I've got like different sugar-free options, I can do that. So it's not like, well, you can have ice cream and be miserable, or like can't have it. So like, I love that you can like determine and then add different things. So now every single night I make a creamy, and it's just exciting to like see. Tonight I had a chocolate peanut butter one. Amazing, great, life-changing. I cannot wait to I'm like 5 days in, and I've already feel like I've changed my life. So I can't wait to continue on this journey. And so one of the first good ones I made was on Sunday night. And so I'm like, this is how I'm going to set my week up right and just have some fun add-ins. And I may share some recipes on our social media. But that is how I'm fighting the Sunday scaries. How are you fighting those Sunday scaries, Miss Sydney?
Yes. I Yes, I love the Ninja Creamy. If you don't have one, 10 out of 10 recommend. We had one on our wedding registry because I was like, is this being like too much? Like, am I being excessive? But then we got it and I was like, wow, this is amazing. It's the best thing ever. And it was funny because my mom was like, she called me before Christmas and she was like, oh my gosh, I have the best gift idea for Dakota that I think I'm going to get him. What do you think about me getting him a Ninja Creamy? And I said, LOL, joke's on you. We already got one. And then her bubble was busted. But yeah, I definitely, if you don't have a Ninja Creamy, definitely 10 out of 10 recommend. But yeah, so I am protecting myself against the Sunday scaries. I have really just been trying to, I know I've kind of been talking about this for probably the past like 3 or 4 episodes, but I have been really trying to like declutter my life. And I say this with all seriousness. I know y'all are probably like, girl, you've been talking about this for a while. Like, how cluttered is your house? But it's not that it's like cluttered. It's just we've moved so much that I'm like, it's pre-marriage stuff from like both my husband and I. And so it's like we'd never really cleaned out our lives before we joined into one. And so now it's like we have stuff from both of our lives that are just like, it's too much. So I'm just really trying to like go room by room to really try to declutter. So my office is next because Lord have mercy, that closet. But yeah, so we're really trying to declutter and just protect ourselves. And I will say, like, I've been doing pretty good so far, where I feel like I'm just like a lot lighter. Like, I just feel like I can think, my thoughts are clear, things along those lines, because I'm starting to get clutter free. So I like to live, I like everything to have a place. And when we moved, it just kind of like got shoved everywhere. And so I'm like, nope, this is not sufficing for me. So we are trying to still declutter our life, but we're moving and grooving. So yeah. So
and
yeah.
too, I feel like it's a constant thing.
Yeah.
Like, because you can do a great spring cleaning and be so organized.
Right.
But then the next season or the next year, like, life happens. And so
Yeah.
I feel like it's like we're always trying to declutter and all
Yes.
that. So take your time, girl.
Yeah. Yeah. It just feels like it's a never ending cycle. And I'm like, when will it end? But yeah, so that is what I'm doing. We hope that you guys are out there protecting yourself against the Sunday scaries. Let us know how you're protecting yourself against the Sunday scaries. Maybe it can help somebody else protect themselves. And yeah, we'll see you next Sunday.